Wes with Pikes Peak Trades, and I need to get this video out quickly here Friday before the close. And we're just going to jump right in. There isn't a whole lot for me to update on the high time frames. I do want to point out on the monthly, you're going to notice the rejection this week right at the monthly 8 EMA. I'm not saying that that's going to lead to a complete bearish rejection down to new yearly lows. There's a lot that has to happen. I'll give you invalidation levels really clearly. I just want to identify that level, which is at about 41.80, that is crucial to break through decisively for this to actually help seal a primary two bottom. And we get that by the end of August, and things are looking really good for continuation in my bullish counts. We get into the weekly, and you can see that it is in between the 21 EMA and looking up into an upper fib zone for minor 3, all the way up there at 43.50 for the 50-week SMA. And I think very likely over the last 50 minutes here that it closes below this 21 EMA. That would certainly be a warning sign for maybe a bearish move next week. But right now that looks just fine. We get into the daily on the S&P, and you're going to notice that yesterday's inside doji candle did follow through down. We're down about 0.5% right now, about 50 minutes before the close. There's no daily loss of support. So until that happens, we can look for possibly a move down to reconnect with the 8-day EMA, but there's really nothing to worry about until price closes beneath it on a daily basis. And within this count right here, I can offer very clearly to you the invalidation level right near this gold pivot. It is the top of what I have July 22nd, the minute one high. That is at 40.1244. So if we break into that, we have an alternate count of a leading diagonal. That would be a minor 1, minor 2. But if we lose that lowest MA, so if we lose a 0.382 fib, we've lost the 50-day SMA. That is what is going to rapidly increase the probability of bearish red. On to the short term. The last 2 days were difficult to trade. I did not trade particularly well on Thursday during all this chop right here. That was a day to completely avoid. Was 100% in cash on the gap down, which was great. I was ready for a bounce. I didn't maybe anticipate it going quite so quickly, but right there at that blue MA, I like to use the 50 period, 15-minute MA, and when it got down beneath this diagonal, we shorted aggressively. We actually shorted the Qs, and that was our day maker right there. And right now, what we're left to wonder is with this series of lower highs, there's actually 4 right in there, is do we get one more leg down? And so that's my main count. My main count is that we do get weakness into Monday. By how I would enter a trade right now, there's no trade entry short. I think it would just be a guess, because if it closes back above this MA at 41.42, I think probability suggests that minute 4 is already in, and this is a 1-2 start. And so I'll show you that on SPY. So on SPY in purple, it's possible that today's low was all of minute 4, and we have a 1-2 start. Certainly, again, we close above that 1:30 p.m. candle high, 413.46. We close above that into the close, and I think there's certainly reason to think that we're going to continue higher. As I said, right now, there is no short signal to me. I think it's going to be a guess. Here during the middle of the video, if we happen to see something set up, I can even talk you through it. Now, because of the fact that I have minute 3 positioned this week, it is less in length than minute 1. That means that if minute 4 is in place, there is actually a limit on the upper extension. I'll show you that on the daily. So because right now, the way that I have this charted as a minute 3, minute 4, the length from the low at minute 2 up to this high this week, you cannot have wave 5 exceed that. So you take this length, you put it at this low, and that is the level right there. So if nothing changes into the close and We break above the weekly high early next week, then we should not see price extend here, or my internals are wrong. Okay, that's just a little bit of just Elliott wave, just a practical way for us to set some targets. But notice that target is perfectly aligned with the 2.0 extension for minor 3 and the 200-day SMA. So I am certainly not ringing a bearish tone here. The only bearish move I'd be looking for is a retest next week of this week's lows. But as I indicated, we close above 413.50 over the next 45 minutes, and I think we're going to open bullish on Monday. We should get into the other main ETFs on the Qs. So you can see Qs in a very similar way. Let me try to shadow that over. Right up against significant monthly resistance. That's in the 325 area, 323 to 325, and that is exactly where price turned around this week. The best way to beat that kind of resistance is to gap up. When I show you a short-term count, it's going to look a little bit like SPY, that it would have to be a 1-2 nest off today. Onto the weekly chart, and you're going to notice it's above roughly the last year's weekly volume POC, and just like SPY and SPX, it's above the 21-week EMA, below that 50. So I would actually be needing to extend this minor 3. If I show you that on the daily, we'll get a little bit better picture. There, this is the better look. This is the corresponding look for what I just showed you, SPX, matching that 200-day SMA. That's all the way up about 341. But as we know, we've got that monthly resistance right here that capped it this week. So 330 is also, I think, a significant pivot. So that marked the low from last summer that then just sent big tech and growth on a slingshot up. It's also what marked the turning cell in early May. And so that's a significant pivot right at 330. And it's possible that on the internals here, that this could actually cap minute 3. Okay, so if today ended a subdegree 4, here's that 1-2 look. And then we move above that blue MA, 322, 323. That's what could set it up to the next set of resistance at 330 before we get its actual minute 4. Okay, so within the morning to afternoon range, there's no trade for me right here. Although I would say, just like SPX, beneath this blue MA, that short-term trend is down. And so that's why I give that alternate that this was a 3-wave W into an X. X waves can disguise themselves impulsively, so that is not an EW violation at all. And now we're looking down into a leg Y that would correspond with the count I just showed you on SPX. We break that high. That high is at, make sure I get that right, 322.18. We're also near the 0.618. We're above that blue MA. And I think we're looking up into next week. So let's keep moving through here. We just looked at the high time frames. Let's get into IWM. So IWM, I wanted to start with the short-term chart because I wanted to point out to you that the markets won't sell off in any significant multi-day way until we have confluence. And IWM, right off the open, right off that candle, rocketed right back up to a weekly high. And that was some information there that today was likely not to be a massive down day. Now, we caught this leg short because we caught the QQQ lower high. So that was a great trade for us. But when it turned around right on the 0.618, that's when I exited to about 3/4 of my puts. And then it just went up to make another weekly high. So it is possible that this is just an AB move because I have this in an ending diagonal. And here we have a 1-2 setup. And then next week we kind of get that blow off move, and that's going to put it into a high time frame resistance. And that's going to put it right into that monthly cluster. So you're going to notice that IWM hasn't gotten there yet to its monthly cluster, which is around 194, 195. SPY and QQQ already have. There's also weekly resistance, and it just tagged under it at just below 192. So that's about $1 above this week's high. If that is conquered, then we've got all that room upwards into the 50-week SMA, and showing you that on the daily, all of this room here. So if we ignite it with a break of the June 7 high, just above 191, that's right near today's high price, we could see that quick move up into the mid to upper 190s. So I would not be looking to aggressively short into the weekend until we see IWM break down, because right now it is leading on the day, along with XLF, which is where we're going to go next. We'll come back to growth. So in that same theme, we got to talk about financials, because they did the same thing. Look at this opening candle. Boom, and a spike up to a new weekly high. It actually spiked up above the previous week's high, which is even more bullish. And so for the bullish case, we have a nested set of 1-2s. So it would not surprise me at all if early next week we gapped up within this count, pulling everything above that weekly resistance levels that I just showed you on the high time frame charts, and financials lead out. Okay, now, again, like IWM, you would not want to be short the market above this blue MA. There's no reason to look for bearish continuation. Okay, now gap downs can always change that, and that's always a risk in this market. We've had tons of gapping moves this summer in both directions. But I'm just suggesting that while we're above support, there's no reason, I think, to take a guess. And so I wouldn't be guessing short this weekend as of right now, because you're really just kind of banking on some type of negative news event. You're just hoping for a gap. Okay, so let's get back now to ARKK, because we've had a lot of really interesting moves in growth names, a lot of earnings reports. And where I have it is I still have it within a very bullish progression. So I would be looking for growth stocks to either have bottomed today. So I'm thinking about potentially Zoom, Shop, Square. We'll look at that chart because it's a little interesting. But again, there's a clear invalidation level. So within this nested bull, 1, 2, 3, 4, up within a larger degree 3, we can't see price trade within the high of 1. So that pivot, that price, 46.62, is our invalidation level. And if we move there and we get below the $46 pivot, I think probability increases rapidly that we could actually get new yearly lows. That would be the bearish scenario here. Other high time frames, you're just going to notice it's above all the dailies. So again, as of today, there's no reason, I think, to be overly bearish or actively short, because we have not seen a breakdown. The retests that we saw today were all within the weekly range, and I don't think anything to be overly concerned about. One other one I do want to show you for main indices is certainly DIA. So DIA, again, a test of daily support, but a move up and a hold. And I have it a lot like XLF in a nested 1-2 count. So until we see the midday lows, the low of the day break, again, that could all change on a gap down. But there's no reason right now, at least into the close. If something happens over the next 40 minutes and we lose 325.50, I probably will take a short over the weekend. But as of now, the probability is with bullish continuation. Okay, now into the individual names. So this is where things get a little murkier, because it does look like in some very big name stocks, we could be approaching a significant high. And Apple is one. So it is possible that on Thursday, Apple finished its first 5-wave up progression. Now, if that is true, then we're definitely going to see weakness next week. But I'm going to offer that I think maybe Apple just put in a wave 4. This could even be a triangle. So an A, B, C, D down to E. And what I like to do, and I left this here blank intentionally, is when I'm projecting wave 4, possibly a triangle, is I like to go ahead and put those diagonals on there. So that just gives you such a really nice visual. And this is actually valid either way. So you don't have to be a master of Elliott Wave. You don't even have to be a novice of Elliott Wave. Just understand some basic geometry. And what you're seeing right here is pretty clear. If Apple breaks above, tests it, moves up, I think we've got one more leg up. And if it breaks below, tests it from the underside and fails at about 164, I think there's a ton of room down to short. So within the daily range, within the weekly range, within this pattern, there's no reason to guess. No guessing at all. We don't ever guess. We make the plan. We use structure. We use fibs. We use all time frames to give us confluence. And I'm just suggesting, as of right now, a trade on Apple is just a guess. We want to get into other names and a few others that I'm a little bit worried about that I think could possibly pull back a little bit more. And the next one is Amazon. So with Amazon, this is an interesting candle. So it looks like the daily is going to be putting in some type of inverted hammer. That would be the bullish look. It's a little bit more like a gravestone doji here if you are bearish, and it just ticked red as I'm speaking. So I've got the possibility that we could pull back in a minute 4 on Amazon. And let me show you that on the small time frame. It doesn't look real impulsive to get started, but a lot of times these moves, they're just rolling over, and then we'll get that quick wave 3 down. So Apple and Amazon, two names that would have me cautious about being overly long this weekend. I've said I don't see a signal yet to short. I hope I've also clearly suggested I also don't see a reason to go overly long. So I think this is a good time to just watch. Sit in your weekly profits, which you should have if you knew what you were doing. Tuesday and Wednesday were phenomenal days to trade. Friday, we just needed one, and we nailed it almost 100% on QQQ puts. And now I think is a time to sit back, enjoy your weekend. Okay, others, we certainly want to talk about other big boys. And let's get into Tesla. And so we get into Tesla and noticeable weakness. In fact, let me slide this over so it's a little bit removed from our volume shelf, right into that wave 4 fib. Okay, now you get a daily candle like this on a big name, and this is concerning. So how much lower will Tesla go? Well, it can actually go a lot lower and keep a bullish progression. So it can go all the way towards the June 27 high. That's $100 down. It would not surprise me if it did. It's already below its 8-day EMA, and typically when big names close below it, they want to move down. So if you wanted to use a name like Tesla as a reason to take, I would still call it a weekend lotto short, I think you've got a reason to, but with everything else above support, I want to just point out to you on that short-term chart that it's possible on Tesla that wave is already in. And so right in here, we're right in between the 0.382 and the 0.236. This, unlike Amazon, does look fairly impulsive, so that's going to give you a little bit of pause. And I always like to keep old diagonals. This is a longer-term bull channel from a higher time frame chart, and these things tend to work like magnets. You're going to notice a rejection here. Once it moved off, that's when we got the massive move earlier this week. And here, maybe it's just going to go right back to it, about 845, and then we get that next move in its bullish progression. So certainly keep Tesla on your list. We got to talk about Microsoft. This will be the last one in big tech. And Microsoft, to me, it looks a lot like the main indices. Why should we be surprised how heavily weighted it is? It's above here, the 34 EMA. This is on the weekly, and it's looking up to that 50-week SMA. I mean, there's a lot of charts we've looked at that look very similar here. This is not a breakdown count. This is a name that looks like it pulled back to weekly, possibly daily support. Could it go a little bit lower? It sure could. So that's why I've got the possibility maybe Microsoft needs to come back and retest this longer term diagonal. And that would be a very easy counting look. In fact, to my eye, it looks pretty good that we've got here a move down, and we're trying to set that second leg down. So it would not surprise me to see Microsoft return mid next week back to the 275 range. But just like Q's, it's possible that I could slide this 3 over, this 4 over, and this is just a 1-2. So again, we're within the daily range, right within the weekly range. Next week, just play the break. So very, very simple. On Monday, if it breaks up and supports the 284 area, that's when we can get that big move up to the next higher time frame fibs. Okay, certainly want to get into growth. And I wanted to talk about Square here because Square reported earnings, and you're going to see the little trading view tag here, that it was an earnings surprise, beating on EPS and revenue, but the stock was down massively pre-market. But then look what it did. And this has been so typical of many, many growth stocks. Shop also comes to mind, that it just exploded all the way from here, all the way back up into a high. Okay, now, because it set that new weekly swing high, I am a little bit concerned that it just set the next degree high. So if we see weakness in big tech and growth, I think this is an A, B, C, and we're looking for Square to return early next week to today's low. Wave 4s love to retrace to the wave 4 previous degree, and I think that would be some great confluence there. All it would do is pull it right back to that 8-day EMA, and then we've got our next chance for a big breaking move. So Square, no way I play it over the weekend, but it's just on watch for the pattern I suggested. Okay, kind of similar here is Shop. And Shop did not set a weekly high today, although it moved massively up off this 0.382 fib. Is this a triangle? A lot like Apple. So an A, B, C, D, E, it's possible. And not high conviction here. Unlike a plan for Square, this is one I just want to watch. But I do want to point out that this minute 3 fib is still a pretty attractive target moving up. And you get growth names like this above potential neckline, above all daily support, and there's just no way here I think you can be overly bearish the market at the end of this week. Okay, other names we certainly want to talk about. I had mentioned Zoom. And Zoom is just kind of coiled right at this daily volume POC, moving through up and down its daily MAs. And I see a lot of room on Zoom. Okay, but again, I'm not exactly sure if this 4 is over. Is this also a triangle, a lot like Shop? My suggestion is just like Shop and Microsoft, is just wait to play for a new weekly break. And if it moves above 115, then that's going to be your clue to get long. And it's possible that this is actually kind of conservative, because we look at the higher time frames on Zoom, and we've got that resistance right at 117. That's almost 118. So it's possible that without daily resistance, we could pretty quickly move back all the way up to the early summer swing highs. So lots of really intriguing growth names, I think, to keep on your list here. We have to talk about semis, because a lot like Apple, Amazon, I've got concerns here. Let me show you the daily chart of Nvidia, that we actually did set a wave 1 high. Let me get rid of that magnet and pull this up so you can kind of see where we're at. We had AMD report initially a very negative reaction, but just like Square today, just kind of a zooming move up that would have actually been a great trade, one that I missed, unfortunately. And so I'm wondering now, has that completed its first 5-wave progression? Which, if you're bearish the market, you don't want to see big names like Nvidia put in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. That is a bullish motive or impulse wave, just like Apple. But that doesn't mean we're just going to rocket straight up. And so I'm leaving the possibility that maybe we get that correction down. And so I know that you should be hearing it in my presentation, that I'm a little bit more, let's say, uncertain going into this weekend than I've been in quite a while because of where I see some of these big names. So AMD on the daily looks almost exactly like Nvidia. And notice, see, I love keeping these high time frame volume POCs on the chart. This goes back a year and it just ticked it. And is this going to be the place where it rejects into a wave 2? Okay, so we certainly keep that in mind. And on the small time frames, possibly the beginnings of a move down, but selling isn't going to happen in AMD till it's below 100. That psych level is just too key. Above it, it can extend. Below it, you probably are going to be looking at a really nice short in both AMD and Nvidia. Okay, there's our individual stocks, but we got to take a look at commodities and crypto because I like the setups here. I've been sharing this on Twitter, and what I also like about this is when I share a bullish chart on Twitter, I get about 5 to 1 the number of bearish interactions as I do bullish. I post the bullish chart and I get basically 0 likes, and I actually love that there's very, very little bullish sentiment or enthusiasm in metals and miners. And I think that's exactly when you want to be entering. So I've got this daily inverse head and shoulder look. It's far, far, far from breaking out. But I just want you to look at the potential. The potential in a nested 1-2, starting to move above, back within an old selling channel. It's above that short-term MA support I've been talking about. Why not give this a chance? And so I am in it, and we're going to see what happens next week. I think it's totally fine. You can be short-term bearish, tech and growth, but you can be bullish, a different sector. Look at what we had with energy recently during the bear market. So it's possible we've reached a point of recognition in metals and miners. I want to show you the SLV Weekly Chart here and look at last week's candle. And now this week, just trying to move back up. It's negative, but that kind of consolidation isn't unhealthy. It's not a severe rejection. On GLD, and this is really where I'm intrigued. I want you to look in purple. The possibility, just like GDX, of a nested 1-2. This is worth your attention. Okay, now is it possible I'm wrong? Absolutely. So, don't go take out a second mortgage here and put it all into GLD. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying considering the possibility. So if early next week we get GLD back above 166, we could see a surprising move. I'm just asking you to consider it, especially looking at the overwhelming bearish sentiment in the sector. Other interesting things to look at. XLE for sure. So I wish I would have traded my count. I shared with my group this bear flagging 2. I didn't trade it because I was distracted with making trades elsewhere, but I have nailed this all the way down right off the $70.50 pivot, and I think we're bouncing back up. So has it gone enough? Well, I don't know. I could see this as a B-wave triangle, one move up early next week, and it starts to reject, and I'm going to take a shot short. If it goes ahead and moves down first, I'll also take a shot short right here against this diagonal on a retest. So I think there's lots of interesting things to look at. I think next week is going to be full of another pretty awesome set of trading opportunities. Wanted to show you one name here in silver mining, because if we get a move in metals, it is the miners that are going to pay off more. And we potentially have a significant bottom here in AG. So weekly chart, it's going to close above the 8-week EMA. On the daily, look at this burst. It's now popping above all of its daily MAs. This is where you want to be long. Okay, so if you're in my group, you got the alert, and we are in this to win this. And we entered right back on the recapture of this diagonal. So these positions are already heavily in the green, and just like GDX, this is exactly where I want to be. I want to be in a 1-2-1-2. You're going to be hard pressed to find a count like that anywhere else that's not in financials and industrials, but here I think we've got it. Okay, last one we'll take a look at is Bitcoin. And for Bitcoin, let me get you to the daily first. I think a possibility here, we also have a 1-2 nest. It lost its 8-day EMA, but it's battling to get it back. Watch it this weekend. So back strongly above 23,000. It's really close. I think this is another nested 1-2, and perhaps we get a really surprising bullish resolution across the board in risk assets. Okay, gang, so that's it for this weekend. I think lots and lots of intriguing things. As I mentioned, there's only a few that I've got the conviction to hold over the weekend, but you now know what they are. We're going to find out what we get on Monday. And as always, you have to have a plan. It has to be solid. You have to know what you're doing. And that plan right now is I don't see a reason to be aggressively short. I also don't yet, still got about 20 minutes left to close, see a reason yet to be aggressively long, at least in individual names in the main ETFs, but it's possible that we get there if we get here a daily or weekly breakouts on individual names. All right, gang, so have a wonderful weekend, and I'll check in again with you Monday.